Let's take a look at benchmark data. So in my imaginary workshop, I've only got two risks, which I would say is pretty unusual, but hopefully it's enough to just demonstrate what we're looking at. So let's look at risk A, which is labelled up as fire. So risk A is sitting here. Now my first question, if we'd run exactly the same workshop a year ago or last quarter, I think naturally I'd be wondering, well, where were we last time? Have things got better? Have things got worse? So how's that risk moved compared to the last time that we assessed it? So the way that we show that is in the hide show menu. You've got this option here that says benchmark. So make sure that that's ticked, and if you've got benchmark data set up, it will plot the benchmark on the heat map as well as today's position. The problem I've got here is I've got it ticked, but I actually haven't put any benchmark data in. So I've not entered what we had for last year, therefore it's not displayed. So let's have a look at how we get that benchmark data into our process. So to do this, we need to close out of here because it has to be done from the list view. So let's go back to the list, and that's how things are looking today. So if we can make a slight mental note of what those are and make sure that that matches with what we expect to see on the heat map. So B is our most worrying, but things aren't really too rosy with A either. So if any of those scores were good, they'd be green, and we'd be expecting to see this appear further towards the bottom left rather than up nearer the top right. Okay, so let's hit finish on our list so that we get our menu items back. Go to File, Data, Edit, and in here we can add our benchmark data by choosing the first option that says Modify Data in Excel or Create an Excel data template. So let's do that, and what should happen is we will get an Excel workbook open up. Be sure before you do this not to have anything else open in Excel, and the reason that I say that is when we come to importing, the software is not looking for a specific file name or location. It's going to try to import from whatever workbook you've got open. So close everything else first and then do this. If you've forgotten to do that and you realise at this stage, that's fine, go close them now before we do our benchmarks. So here are my two risks. So fire and flood were A and B, as we can see just over there. So let's pop in some imaginary benchmarks. So let's say last year this was looking fairly bad actually, and in terms of likelihood we thought that it was pretty likely but certainly not certain. So we had some control but not great. Flood at head office, let's say that was looking really bad last year. It's very high impact, but it's also very high likelihood, and we're not at all happy with our control effectiveness on that one. So we've got those filled in. Don't need to save, don't need to do anything else, just come back across to here and now import it. So it warns me that if we've got live data in that spreadsheet, it's going to overwrite it. That's fine, we didn't touch the live data, so that won't change anything. Haven't got any postal vote data. Now we'll cover that in a completely separate video. Postal votes are for people that can't attend on the day but you still want their scores, so we didn't fill that in, it's fine, but it is going to replace benchmark data. So let's say yes on that, say OK. This is all exactly as it was before. Nothing's changed because we didn't change anything. What we can't see from the list is the benchmarks. So where we can see benchmarks is on our various graphs, but let's go and have a look at it on the heat map because that's where we were. So we'll say OK on here, go across to graphs, and let's pop onto the matrix graph. We still want it to do the same plot that we were looking at before, impact versus likelihood. So let's say OK on there, and there is the new information. So in terms of both of these risks, I've added in benchmark data that suggests that things were terrible, as I'm sure you can recall. So it was 4.8, 4.8 for item B. So we can see B was here, now it's down here. A is down here now, but this time last year it was over here. So we've definitely made progress on both of those. And of course, it's not always going to look quite as rosy as that. If you find it a little bit busy when you've got all of the risks on screen, I would suggest you just go through them one at a time. So if we wanted to only look at A and say, where are we now? Where were we last year? If I press A on my keyboard, it will show me A. If I press B, we'll lose A and we'll see just item B. So A to look at fire and B to look at flood, and so forth. Presumably you would have a lot more risks than this, so you would be going all the way through the alphabet looking at the different risks. If you want to plot all of them again, if you just hit the escape key, now we can see them all. And if you want to turn those benchmarks off, because it's all well and good looking at how we compare, but what really matters is what's happening today, so we can just untick benchmark and we've only got today's results.